Okay, guys, so we're looking at percent, part, and whole in data representations. And our objective basically is that we are looking at making part to part or part to whole comparisons in graphs. And so we're looking at circle graphs or dot plots or bar graphs, histograms. We've even looked at box plots a little bit, being able to kind of look at percentages, parts, and wholes within these. So this is the front of your notes page real quick. We're going to focus, start in this top section real quick right over here. And I'm going to start with this section right here. So we're going to look at this finding percent first. And this part should be kind of review. Finding percent, part, and whole isn't brand new to 7th grade. You usually have some experience with this. We've done a little bit of this earlier this year. So let's review real quick. Finding the percent. What I did also is I included the percent, part, whole triangle right over here. And this is a nice visual that can help you remember what process you can do if you need to find the part, or if you need to find the whole, or if you need to find the percent. Okay, so let's try this first one. Finding the percent. So that's what we're looking for here. Stephen used 21 of his 25 quarters his mom gave him at the arcade. What percentage of the quarters did he use? This is probably the most common calculation we make with percent, part, whole is finding a percent. You do this when you get a test grade, for instance. So if you use 21 out of 25, what do these numbers represent in the triangle? Well, 21 out of 25, 25 is like the whole value. That's the total number of the coins, the quarters that he had. And he used 21 of them. So the part, he used part of them, which is a 25. So then how do we figure this out? What method do we use? The triangle kind of tells us right over here when we use this. We're going to do the part, and then you see the divided by the whole. So you're going to take 21, 21.0, and that means you put that inside the box. Always put 0.0 after. Repeat it again. Always put 0.0 after. You're usually going to get a decimal. And we're going to divide by the 25. Okay. And I probably should have done the 21 in orange, but we'll keep it. All right. No need to move a decimal here. We're just going to divide. 25 does not go into 2. You're going to place this 0 up right there. All right. 25 does not go into 21. That's another 0 right over there. I checked the 2. I checked the 1. But 25 does go into 210. How many times? Well, 25 goes into 104 times. Going to 208 times. So I'm going to say 25 times 8 is 200. After you divide, subtract it out, you're going to get 1 minus 0 is 1, 0 minus 0 is 0, and you've always got to bring down. With the arrow, don't forget. That gives you 100. Now, 25 into 100, well, that's going to be 4 times. 25 times 4 is 100, just like that. So I'm going to put 25 times 4, 4 at the top, put my 100, break it out. Looks like the answer is 0.84 or 0.84. Remember, when you turn into percents, you got to move the decimal 2 spaces to the right. So the answer on this one is 84%, and Stephen here used 84% of his quarters. All right, let's look at the next one. Finding the part. 30% of students, so we're looking for the part real quick. So this says 30% of students chose purple as their favorite color. If there were a total of 24 students, how many chose purple as their favorite color? Fill in our triangle here. So 30% of students, that means obviously that's our percent. I'm going to throw a 30% in there. If there were a total of, or 24 total students, we know that the whole is 24. How many chose purple? So this is finding the part right over here. So, okay, in order to do that, what steps do we follow? Well, if I have this bottom section filled out, it's basically multiplication. You see it right there. 24 times 30% will get us the answer. But we have to turn 30% into a decimal, all right? So I'm going to write 24. And then 30%, it would normally be like this. But when you turn a percent into the decimal, you bring the decimal back 2 places, basically. And you have to make this 0.30. You have to turn it into a decimal. So this is how we're going to multiply this guy out. Now, I know I just moved the decimal, but during the process of multiplication, we're going to multiply this times 0.30. So I'm going to kind of make sure my decimal comes over 2 places so I can bring it back and get my place value. And we can multiply. You also could have multiplied, by the way, 24 times 0.3. That would get you the same answer. But I'm going to kind of keep it detailed right over here. 0 times 4. I'm multiplying here. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. When you're done with your first row, you cross it out, you place a 0, and now we can get some numbers. 3 times 4, well, that's 12. I'm going to put a 2, carry a 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. I'm done. We need to add up our rows here. 0 and 0 is 0. 0 and 2 is 2, and then I have a 7. Looks like it's 720, but I bet there were not 720 students that were the part, because we need to come back 2 places on the decimal. So the decimal was there. I come back 2 places, and it looks like 7.2 is our answer. Now understand this, there aren't going to be 7.2 students that chose purple here as their favorite color. There's going to be about 7 students. So you can understand and your reference of your word problem, but that's how we solve for the part. Finally, the whole. How do we find the whole value? This is typically the one that's most challenging for students. Sets up like this. 24% of 7th graders scored masters on their exam. If 12 students scored masters on their exam, how many total students took the exam? So we're looking for the total here. What do we have? 24% is what they tell us right at the beginning. 24% of 7th graders scored masters on the exam. If 12 students scored masters, so 12 is the part, all right? And now we're trying to find the whole. There's my little question mark right there. So what's our method? What do? I have this part put together. Well, you see the division sign in the middle real quick right there. That means we're going to take 12 and we're going to divide it by 24%. 12 divided by 24%, that means 12 goes inside the box, okay? Just like that. And we're going to divide it by 24%. Now I told you, always put a decimal, so make it 12.0. And we're going to divide by 24, but remember a percent we always turn into a decimal. So it's going to be 0.24, 0.24. Make sure you have that set up on your notes page. All right, now let's divide here. Now here's how this works with division. You can't divide if your decimal is to the left out over here. You always want it at the end. So we're going to move this 0.24 decimal 2 spaces over to the end. Well, here's the catch. Because we moved it 2 spaces right there, we got to move it 2 spaces on this side as well. So I'm going to erase those out 2 spaces over, and I'm going to replace my decimal point at the end. Just make this line a little bit longer. Well, I'm also got to place in a 0. So now what happens is this looks like 1200 or 1200 divided by 24, and we can do our division now, okay? So here we go real quick, doing our division, and I'm going to use, I'll use orange. 24 does not go into 1, that'd be 0. 24 also does not go into 12, that'd be another 0. 24 does go into 120, and if you do the math, you can multiply it out. It actually goes in evenly 5 times. 24 times 5 is 120. You zero this out, 0, 0, 0, but you still have a bring down right over here. So 24 goes into 0. You kind of have to fill in that 1 space because 24 would go into that 0, 0 times. 24 times 0 is 0. So I'm doing a lot of kind of basic zeroing out here, but the answer is going to be 50 up at the top. So the whole value, there were 50 students right here that took this test. 12 made masters, and that was 24%. So as we look through our graphs real quick, you guys have these pages. You have a circle graph. There's a histogram or a bar graph on one of them like this, and then there is a dot plot. Real quick at the top, I'm going to look at the first question in each one real fast. And again, you're just using this data to solve for percent, part, and whole. So look at one real quick on the circle graph. Just looking at question 1, I'm not going to look at all of them. How many students prefer math? Well, what I kind of messed up on is we should probably read the basic info at the front. The circle graph below shows the subject preferences of 70 students in 7th grade EA Prep. Let me get our triangle up. So, what information do we have? We know the whole is 70. We know there are 70 students in this survey at EA Prep, right? Okay, cool. What preferences? The question says on question 1, how many students prefer math? Well, let's go to math. Well, math is right here, and actually this ain't going to be too bad. Math is 50%, okay? So math is half of these students, real quick. So we know the percent is going to be 50%. Well, how do we solve this real quick? We look right here, it's multiplication, 70 times 0.50. Now I told you real quick, you do 70 times 0.50. Some of y'all will know mental math, you can just get half of 70 and solve this question. but I'll do it long way real quick. We could move the decimal over. We get 2 spaces over. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 7 is also 0. You take that out and drop your 0 in. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 7 is 35. And now you got to do your line and add up. All you're going to get is 0, 0, 5, 3. Looks like a huge number, 3,500. But come back 2 places. That means your decimal gets placed right there. And the answer is 35 students. 35 is the part. We were looking for the part there, okay? All right, cool. What about the bar graph? Look at question 4. This says the bar graph below displays the number of species of snakes at an animal sanctuary. Okay, cool. We're going to look at question 4, the first one. What is the total number of snakes at the sanctuary? Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. We got to figure this out. Okay. Well, first what we need is we need the total number of snakes. The bar graph below shows the number of species of snakes. We got to figure out what parts we have. And actually, 4, this is pretty straightforward. It says, what's the total number of snakes at the sanctuary? I'm going to kind of leave this to you, but all you really need to do is count up the total number of pythons. You can get up to the bar graph, the number of cobras, the number of king snakes, and the number of rat snakes, and you can fill that out, okay? When they say writing a ratio, the number of pythons to total snakes, this is just an example, but for instance, the number of pythons looks like it's at 12. You would just put 12 colon, and this is question 5 real fast, and then you put the number of total snakes to the right. You probably want to simplify it down all the way if it makes a fraction you can simplify, but try that out. So this 4, 5, 6, 7 are pretty basic, and you should be able to get those, okay? Last part, dot plot. This is 8, 9, and 10. The dot plot below shows the types and number of pets in our class real quick. What percent students have? This is just finding percent, all right? So if you look at 8, for instance, what percent of students have cats? I counted up all these dots real quick, and there's 19. So the whole value, the number of students in a dot plot is 19. There's 19 dots. What percent of the students have cats? Well, I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to wipe out that 19, but I was taking away the other dots. Cats is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 is the part. So you just take 6 and you divide it by 19. So you set that up as 6. I should write that correctly. 6.0 divided by 19. And bring the decimal up, and then you should be able to divide in here on this one. This is like the very first example we did, okay? 19 is not going to go into 6. You can figure out how many times it should go into 60. My guess is 3. 3 times 19, 3 times 19. Top of my head, that's something like 57. And you might get something, let's see if we get anything that repeats. We would subtract 60 minus 57. We're going to get 3. Bring down a 0, it's 30. You're going to get 0.31, basically just like this. And, you know, we can kind of see how this keeps working out. You get 19 here. That's going to be 11. Bring down a 0. Does 19 go into 110 evenly? Let me see. 110. Not really. It's going to be like 0.5, but I'm doing this long one for you. You're going to get like 0.315. Move the decimal over 2 places, 1, 2. And the percent could basically be like 31.5%, or if you turned it into 32%. All right, I'm going to stop here, but this is kind of the basics of this. You should be able to continue with the practice questions, but this is how we want to be calculating the percent part whole in data representations.